Okay, so, you guys have sent in some really fascinating stuff, a lot about this idea of 10 good karmas. And it's got me thinking, it seems like a really interesting framework.
Yeah, and it's not just like a vague concept. There's real depth here. When you dig into these sources, you see they're talking about a fundamental link between the things we do and the things we experience. Like literally cause and effect playing out in our lives.
Right, and the sources don't shy away from the nitty-gritty either. I mean, they get specific, talk about wholesome actions, unwholesome actions, and how they sort of echo through time.
Totally. And what really struck me was that line right at the beginning of one of the texts. I think it was tab 1, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, tab 1.
It says something like, if you want to understand what happened in your past lives, look at what you're experiencing now. And if you want to know what your future holds, well, pay close attention to what you're doing right now.
Whoa, that's powerful. It's like we're not just passive passengers here. We're actively shaping our reality with every choice we make.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole concept of karma so compelling. It's often understood as the teachings or the path of righteousness, putting such a strong emphasis on our actions and the impact they have.
It's like a universal law.
Yeah.
You reap what you sow. And these sources go even deeper, giving us a really detailed breakdown of how this works. They've got this whole catalog of 10 specific unwholesome actions, like watch out for these, right? And alongside each one, they lay out potential consequence.
Yeah, kind of a roadmap of things to avoid.
And then they do the flip side. They detail all these benefits that come from choosing a different path, cultivating the opposite, the positive actions. It's presented as a practical guide, like how to live in alignment with these karmic principles.
So are you thinking we should take a look at this practical guide?
I think so. I mean, it seems like a good place to start. Why don't we? And why don't we begin with the 10 things these sources say are good to steer clear of? The 10 unwholesome karmas.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so tab 1 lists them out. Killing, stealing, adultery, which is also called sexual misconduct, lying, slander, bad speech. Like, think harsh or abusive language. Then there's frivolous speech, idle talk, greed, anger, and wrong views.
Wow, that's quite a list. It's like they've covered just about everything.
Right. It's a pretty comprehensive overview of things these sources consider detrimental. But the interesting thing is they don't just say these are negative in a general way. They get very specific about the potential impacts.
Like what?
Well, for starters, they suggest engaging in these unwholesome actions could cause beings to be reborn in what they call evil realms. Hell, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm. Pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, not exactly vacation destinations.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But what really got to me was the way they outline these 2 very specific human repercussions for each action. It makes the consequences feel much more personal, much more immediate.
I see what you mean.
Okay, for instance, let's take killing. If someone takes a life and is reborn as a human, the text suggests they might experience a short lifespan and be prone to illnesses. So engaging in killing isn't just about the act itself. It's about potentially creating a future for yourself where you're sick a lot and you don't live very long.
It's a pretty powerful connection.
And it's not just killing, it applies to all of them. So with stealing, for example, the human retributions are poverty and this inability to share wealth or experience true freedom. Like, those are real tangible struggles within a human lifetime.
Yeah, it brings the karmic consequences right into the here and now, doesn't it? Not some distant future punishment.
Exactly. Then you've got adultery, which they suggest can lead to having a partner who's unfaithful and not being able to have the family you might want.
Makes you think.
Then with lying, it can result in constantly being slandered by others and finding yourself deceived. It's like a total breakdown of trust.
Ugh, yeah. I think we've all experienced the sting of betrayal, right? And it really makes you rethink your own actions.
Absolutely. And then with slander, which is also called double-tongued speech, it can lead to families being torn apart and even this kind of corruption spreading among relatives. It emphasizes how our words, directly impact the people closest to us.
Absolutely.
So next we come to bad speech, which is essentially abusive or harsh language. This is said to result in you being on the receiving end of a lot of unpleasantness, constantly being caught up in arguments and disputes, almost like a mirror, right? The negativity you put out comes right back at you.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Almost like what goes around comes around.
Right. And that pattern seems to continue with frivolous speech or idle talk. The text says that no one will take your words seriously and your speech will just lack clarity. Makes you wonder about the connection there. Like, could it be that when we're careless with our words, it erodes our credibility and our ability to communicate effectively?
Interesting point.
And then there's greed. This is described as having an unsatisfied heart and an excessive, almost addictive desire for things.
Right.
It paints this picture of a constant internal struggle. Like no matter how much you acquire, you never truly feel content.
Yeah, and with anger, which I guess isn't too surprising, it can lead to being constantly criticized, both for your good qualities and your flaws, and also being perpetually annoyed and harmed by others, almost like a state of perpetual conflict and negativity.
Definitely. And finally, we have wrong views. The text suggests this can result in being born into a family that shares similar incorrect beliefs, and also having a deceitful heart. It's like a cycle of misinformation passed down through generations. It makes you wonder, when it talks about wrong views leading to being born into a family with wrong views, is that almost suggesting a societal perpetuation of these issues?
It certainly highlights how deeply ingrained and self-reinforcing certain perspectives and beliefs can be.
Right. So what's fascinating here is the level of detail. These sources don't keep karma as some vague philosophical concept. It's about potential real-life experiences. It encourages you to really think about the impact of your actions, not just on some abstract level, but on your own well-being and your relationships with others.
Exactly.
So we've spent a lot of time looking at things to avoid. But what about the flip side? The positive actions, the 10 good karmas.
Yeah, let's explore those.
Okay, so essentially, these are the practices of abstaining from the 10 unwholesome things we just talked about.
Yeah.
And the text really emphasizes this idea that when you consistently remember and practice good dharma, the path of righteousness, it leads to eliminating negativity and really perfecting your good qualities.
It paints a pretty compelling picture.
Right. And when you look at the benefits associated with each of these good karmas, the picture gets even brighter. Like with abstaining from taking life, the text says it leads to these 10 amazing ways of eliminating suffering.
Oh.
Like, just to give you a few, it talks about giving fearlessness to all beings, always having great compassion, permanently cutting off anger, enjoying a long lifespan, being protected by non-human beings, having the support of others, no fear of death, always being reborn in good realms, and ultimately attaining nirvana.
That is quite a list.
And it doesn't stop there. Abstaining from stealing brings its own set of 10 benefits, which the text call the 10 kinds of trustworthy dharmas.
Okay, like what?
Well, some of them include having abundant wealth that can't be easily lost or destroyed, being loved and cared for by many people, not being bullied or harmed, being praised by others, being free from the fear of thieves, always having the means to live comfortably, having your wealth continuously increase, being free from poverty, always being generous, and even being reborn in heavenly realms.
You know, the emphasis on trustworthiness here really stands out. Like, it's this fundamental integrity that radiates outwards, having these positive ripple effects.
Absolutely. And then refraining from evil conduct, which in this context is about abstaining from sexual misconduct, leads to what the text calls 4 kinds of wisdom that are praised.
Okay, tell me more.
So it talks about your senses being in harmony, functioning really well, being free from distracting noises and disturbances, being praised by people for your ethical conduct, and your partner staying faithful and true. It's all about inner peace and harmonious relationships built on respect.
Sounds pretty idyllic.
Right. Then abstaining from lying brings about these 8 kinds of dharma praised by the gods.
Okay, this I have got to hear.
It's things like having a pure mouth that naturally smells good, like a rare flower, being trusted and respected by everyone, your words being accepted and recognized by both humans and divine beings, always comforting others with true and loving words, having a strong will and pure karmic imprint, speaking clearly and without mistakes, having a kind of authority in your words that others willingly follow, and just possessing extraordinary, unstoppable wisdom.
Wow. I mean, what a collection of really amazing qualities, and all stemming from something as fundamental as just telling the truth.
Right. And then refraining from double-tongued speech or slander brings about 5 things the text describes as indestructible dharmas.
Indestructible dharmas.
Yeah. So it's having an indestructible body, an indestructible retinue of people who support you and can't be turned against you, indestructible faith in the principles of karma and the path, indestructible dharma practice, like you're really firm and unwavering in your practice, and then indestructible good teachers who won't deceive or mislead you.
I see a theme here. It's like stability and unwavering support in your life and on your path.
Right. And then abstaining from speaking evil words, avoiding harsh or abusive language results in 8 kinds of pure karma.
Okay. What are those like?
Well, it's things like speaking in alignment with dharma and reason, your speech benefiting others, speaking beautifully in a way that people really respond to, having trustworthy words that aren't criticized and that people love hearing. Always speaking at the right time, speaking gently and kindly, saying things that are truly meaningful and beneficial, and just having a voice that's clear and pleasant to listen to. It highlights how transformative our communication can be when it's based in kindness and understanding.
That's so true.
Then, abstaining from idle talk brings about what the text calls 3 kinds of certainty.
Interesting.
It says you'll be loved and respected by wise and virtuous people, you'll be able to answer truthfully and wisely when questioned, and you'll have great prestige and influence among both humans and divine beings without any falsehood or pretense. It's like having this foundation of genuine respect and clear understanding, all because you're mindful of the words you use.
I like that.
Okay, so then we come to being free from greed. This is said to bring about 5 kinds of freedom.
5 kinds of freedom. I'm intrigued.
Freedom in your physical, verbal, and mental actions, like all your faculties are working in harmony. Freedom in your wealth, so it can't be easily taken from you. Freedom in your accumulated merit, which lets you act in accordance with Dharma without obstacles. Freedom in your status, so rare and valuable things are just naturally offered to you. And then receiving far more than you initially sought because of the good karma you've accumulated through past generosity.
It sounds like a state of true abundance, but like an inner abundance, not just material wealth.
Right, it's about non-attachment. And then being free from anger cultivates 8 different kinds of joyful mental states.
What are those like?
So it's things like having a mind that's always free from harm and annoyance, a naturally gentle and peaceful disposition, pervasive kindness and compassion for all beings, constantly acting in ways that benefit and calm those around you, having a dignified and respected presence wherever you go, having a radiant and pleasing appearance, the potential for swift rebirth in the Brahma world that's a celestial realm associated with purity and tranquility due to your harmony and forbearance, and ultimately attaining liberation from suffering.
Wow, talk about a transformation. It's like inner peace radiating outward.
Right. And finally, we have the benefits of being free from wrong views. This is said to lead to 10 meritorious dharmas.
Okay, let's hear it. This is the last one, right?
Right, the last one. So it's having true intentions and attracting good companions on your path, developing deep faith in the principles of cause and effect, naturally taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, having a straightforward mind, and consistently holding right views, always being born in good and supportive realms, continuously increasing your merit and wisdom, walking the noble eightfold path with diligence, gradually letting go of attachment to the impermanent physical body, abiding in a clear and unobstructed understanding of reality, and ultimately not falling into states of suffering or confusion. It's like a complete roadmap towards spiritual growth and well-being.
That's amazing. You know, as you're describing all these benefits, what's really striking me is how often Tab 2 emphasizes that dedicating these practices to the attainment of Buddhahood, which is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, amplifies all these benefits even further.
Yes, so true.
It lists some really incredible things. Living as long as you wish, having this pure and penetrating wisdom, speaking words that are true and meaningful, having a huge following of people who support you, having a voice like Brahma that just resonates with truth, being able to make accurate predictions, receiving respect and offerings from all these amazing beings, having a completely unobstructed and clear mind, and even developing supernatural abilities.
Wow, talk about motivation.
Yeah. It's a whole other level.
I mean, what we're looking at here is this incredibly detailed and interconnected system. Our actions, whether we choose the unwholesome or we cultivate the wholesome, have consequences that go way beyond just this moment.
It's so true.
It's not just about instant gratification or pain. It's about actually shaping our future experiences in really powerful ways.
I couldn't agree more. And you know, these 10 good karmas, they're not presented as some kind of abstract moral code. These texts frame them as a practical, detailed framework for living ethically. It's like, here are very tangible benefits directly tied to the choices you make. It's an invitation to really choose actions that lead to positive outcomes, not just for you, but for everyone around you.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive into these principles.
It really has.
You know, thinking about all these different consequences, it makes me wonder, which one of these unwholesome karmas do you think has the most far-reaching impact, and why? It's something to really consider based on everything we've explored today.
Yeah, great question. Really makes you think.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been great having you here.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.